Welcome back. Now we're going to get to work. So we've been through the introduction, how to set it up and where to find things and what configuration options you might have. Now we're going to actually clone some issues and see how the product works in reality. So I have prepared some filters down here and some different use case scenarios on the left-hand side here. So you can see that I also prepared some projects here. So a very famous movie, which you probably all recognize. And what we want to do is to inherit or clone over some aspects from the first movie into another movie. We do that by choosing the rebuild epic links, which essentially is taking the entire narrative of a Maximus story from the first movie and all of the events that he's gone through, and we will clone that into subsequent prequels. So from this point of view, we now have the filter activated. We choose the apps, and we choose to activate the thing. I want to put a prefix into this one so I can recognize that I actually carry them over from one project to another. I don't have a need for a clones link. I know where they're coming from, and I don't want to keep the integrity in this particular example. I do want to clone subtasks, and I do want to carry the attachments over, and I do want to carry any labels I used previously. And of course, if we enable the rebuild epic links here, it will preserve the hierarchy between the epic and its associated stories in a parent-child relationships. And also, I do want to alter the target field values to be set with different default values as we're moving through the cloning process. So going to the next screen, this is where all the magic happens. So it's trying to group things. So what you get up here is the source project. You can have multiple input projects, which we're going to cover in a later video. But in this particular instance here, we actually have sources from one input project. And you can actually either clone it into the same project, or you can clone it into another project. So I choose to clone it into another project called the Gladiator 6. And of course, I want to keep the same issue type. However, you can also remap the issue type. So if you wanted to sort of convert a story into a task, that would also be okay. Sometimes you might have a bug, for instance, that needs to be promoted into an improvement or a story for development. And then you can do the conversion in the same go. What you see down here is then the target fields, which you can now alter on the fly. So I have pre-configured this project with a few custom fields and with a few extra bits and bobs. So we can choose my select list multiple, for instance, and it will pop up here. So for everything I clone now, I prefer to have these values set by default for all of the issues that comes across. I choose only one custom fields, but you can choose as many as you want. So if you wanted to choose another one, for instance, you could include the radio buttons as well, and you will get that one as well. This one is about the mandatory fields. So in my field configuration scheme, my configuration for this project, I set up certain fields to be mandatory. And of course, the date is mandatory, and the date and time is mandatory. The user, meaning me, in this particular case, is mandatory. And one of my custom fields are also mandatory. So I need to fill in something for my character. And there's a number field here also, which is sort of mandatory. And this is then true. This is the whole configuration spec for the story, right? For the issue type story. So now we proceed a little bit faster here in the same fashion for subtasks. So the subtask associated with that story, I choose not to alter the output here because I want them to be the same, but I still need to actually confirm because these are mandatory field, right? And the user needs to be set. And I prefer to alter these character things, and my number field is also needs to be configured here. So that is the stories and the subtasks. Now we're moving into the epic, and I want to clone that into the same target project, Gladiator 6, and it's the same issue type we're talking about. I don't want to change the issue types on these particular ones. I don't have anything to alter on the fields or the custom fields here, but I need to go through the mandatory fields again, right? So at any given point in time for any issue type, you can alter the system on or the custom fields output to be something else than the input was. I just chose to do it on the story level for time purposes of this video. So in this case, I altered this one, and I've done this one now. So now we are through step 2 here, where we actually do the mapping. So either you can reroute it to a different output project, or you can keep it in the same project and you can alter the values basically. If you would try to clone something which had required a mandatory field, you would get a prompt up down here and you couldn't proceed, an alert, a warning if you like. Let's carry on the work. So this is the configuration screen. So this is where you can see what your initial options were. And you can also see how you have configured and how many items there are in here. Let's start going. So what you can see on this screen, which will pop up in a second here, is how it's now cloning the stories, the subtask underneath the stories with its attachments. And there will be a second story, its subtasks, its attachments. And down here you can actually see how many items it's cloning at the moment and the progress bar down here. At any given point in time you can stop it, or you can take a look at the issues coming out of it. So once it has cloned everything, so the last one here is actually the parent epic, right? Which contains all of the stories in this little example here. So once you're done, you press acknowledged and you get to the output clone set basically, which is now then cloned and moved in one operation and altered field values into Gladiator 6. And here you can actually see what I talked about earlier on when we talked about the unique label. You can actually see here that that unique label has been applied, and that goes for all levels in the hierarchy basically. And here it's been cloning 18 items here, as you can see. So this takes you through the video of cloning hierarchies of issues. There wasn't many issues in this particular example, but the way you clone is quite complex, and bulk clone will take care of that. See you in the next video, where we will go through cloning from multiple input sources to one output source. See you then.